Well, first off, I just want to thank you guys for coming down for the screening. It's a pleasure to have you here in person. It's always a special treat. And yeah, just to have your movie was wonderful. It was a great surprise in this year's batch of submissions. It was definitely one of those films that just kind of jumped out and caught everybody's attention. It was sort of like a unanimous, yeah, this one. And so that's always a real treat amongst many films when we get something that stands out like that. And it just kind of magically fit this theme that we had going on too. So thanks for sending it our way.
Thanks so much for having us and for saying that. That's a huge compliment. That's really cool. It's an amazing space to see the film in, and we have a great turnout. So thanks so much for having us.
You bet. I guess maybe I'll just throw a few questions your way before I open it up to the audience. But I just wanted to ask, I know that you guys met, you were teaching children, you signed up to do this separately, but you met doing that in Honduras. But as far as the film goes, you know, how did that aspect come together? And because it's it's a fairly complicated project you have here, and there's a lot of different elements that work pretty subtly and seamlessly, but you have, I don't know if there's if you shot it all, or is there some archival footage in there too from earlier days of Los Plebes, or like, and then you have the North Carolina stuff. Do you guys want to like both sort of chirp in and talk a little bit about the genesis of this documentary?
Yeah, so Ted and I met in Honduras in 2000 and I guess like 10. We taught there for 2 years. Ted taught kindergarten in 12th grade. I taught 6th grade. And that's how we found out about the band, was when we were living there. You'd hear them kind of all over the place, and they were this like mysterious group that, you know, played for the drug cartels.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of, I guess, where the idea came from. Was obviously, like, I'm from Virginia, Ted's from Massachusetts. There's not a big narco corrido scene in either of those places. So it was like a way to show what's going on down there, you know, bring it up north to the States. And yeah, I don't know, we met, and then we came back in 2012. We went to Boston, and our roommate Andrew, who we live with, is here as well. We were in Boston, and Ted was selling software. I was working at a psych hospital, and we both kind of hated it, and so decided to. And we were still, I think, and we still are, but like very much in love with Olancho. And we tell people these crazy stories about the things that we experienced and saw, and they're pretty unbelievable, but obviously true. So we decided that we wanted to kind of bring some of those stories and that, you know, piece of Olancho and show it to the world. So that was kind of the idea. That's why we did it.
And so I think when both of us accepted the teaching positions, we both found that teaching job online just through a website called idealist.org, and we both knew that we wanted a cultural experience in Central America, and we wanted an opportunity to learn and practice and speak Spanish, and we found that, but I don't think either of us knew going into it that Honduras in that time, well, actually in a couple of years before then, but kind of really peaking in 2010, had become a major stop on the drug route from northern South America to the U.S.
So you guys were aware that it was really dangerous before you signed up to go teach there?
Not aware.
If you go to Wikipedia, it's like, it makes it out to be quite a lovely place. There's like a nice little photo, so it's a little misleading.
But then after just a few weeks of being there, we kind of pieced it together that the capital of Olancho, where we were living, was really run by drug cartels. The families that were in charge of the town and the surrounding cities all kind of had these front governments, town governments set up, but really they were controlling things behind the scenes with groups of small militias. And we would hear gun battles at night, and the next day at school you'd hear the gossip of who was involved and who was heard if anyone was hurt or killed. And as Chris mentioned, we kind of found out from some of our local friends that this group of musicians, Los Valdes, was actually going and performing at private concerts at these families' homes, and actually writing songs that told the stories of people who had been killed, big drug movements that they had moved, and their albums were becoming famous, kind of underground. People would sell their CDs just on the street in Juticalpa, where we lived. And so as Chris said, when we were back in the States, we realized that could be a good window for Americans to see Olancho culture through.
It definitely is grabs everybody's interest, I think. Just the gangsta element, I guess, but it's very, very real, as we can see. So you guys didn't film anything while you were down there initially, so you decided to go back and make the movie, and then had you already met Manuel or any of these play-based people, or was it kind of a real leap of faith? We're gonna go make this movie, we're gonna try to contact the band, we're gonna like...
Yeah, I was telling this earlier actually to some people, but you called it a leap of faith. I would have said maybe more like a leap of stupidity we took, because it was like
right.
A lot of people, you in here, helped support us with the Kickstarter, and that was the only reason we were able to even, buy the equipment and hire Shlomo, who was the cinematographer. He shot everything. We were successful, and we had this money, and we had promised to make this movie, and we had never even contacted the band. Not because we, put it off, or we just couldn't. They live in a place that has no water, no electricity, like very remote, so there's no way to really get in touch with them. So we went down to Honduras with this plan, and we had hired Shlomo, who was going to be coming a month after we arrived. We gave ourselves a month to find the band, kind of get everything set up so he could just come and start filming. But we couldn't find the band anywhere, so we spent like the first 3 weeks going around and asking people about the Los Valdes de Olancho, and everybody thought we were either DEA or CIA. Nobody wanted to talk to us, so we were like, shit, what are we gonna do? We need like a plan B, because we can't find these guys. And it was Thanksgiving Day, and we were 2 days out from Shlomo arriving, and he's going to be, filming this band that we supposedly had already found. And we, we're sitting in the Texaco station, which is the only place that has Wi-Fi and air conditioning. So we are, Ted, plan B, plan C, what are we going to do? And this guy comes in the gas station, and he's like, hey, you guys are those gringos looking for the band, right? We're like, yeah, we are. How'd you know that? And he's like, well, you're the only gringos looking for this band. It's like, duh. He's like, there's a guy outside in a truck that's taking some supplies up to their village, and he can take you to them if you go right now. And so we're like, yeah, obviously let's do it. We went outside, and the truck is just covered in bullet holes, like riddled. So we had this little Kia type car. It was not going to get up the mountain. So me and Ted hopped in the front seat with these two guys. It was like us four crammed into this truck, and we went 2 hours up into the mountains, and it was like raining. I was like pretty sure we were gonna die, but we made it. We arrived to the mountain, to the village where they were, and sure enough we pull up right to their house, and they're outside, and they're tuning up their guitars, and they've got their guns and everything, and we're like, hey, we want to make a movie about you guys. And they're like, who are you? So that was kind of the start of it. And then from there, we had to form a relationship with them, and they didn't really know what documentary film was, and it was kind of difficult at first to get them to understand what we were trying to do. But
that's an amazing story right there. Just the thought of you guys doing that, and the courage. I mean, maybe it was just kind of like you weren't even really thinking about it, but for us sitting here, it's sort of like, wow, these guys actually just got in the whole truck, and they could have been going after their execution. I don't really know, but no, I'm sure you had a better gut feeling than that. But
my mom wasn't that happy about the story. She was a little bit more concerned.
You told her about that later.
Yeah.
After you're back. Okay. Wow. Okay. And so you like everything that we see here. Did you guys and Shlomo film yourselves, or some of it old footage of the band too?
Pretty much all. There are a couple stock scenes, just the footage of Marvin Mraz. Marvin was one of the original founders of Los Plebes de Olancho, and he was actually killed while we were teachers. And so by the time we got to them, Manuel was the leader, and there were just YouTube footage of Marvin online. So we used some of that.
In order to get him in there, and just document the tragedy that had already occurred. And you guys and tell me a little bit how, in your relationships with the movie, how did the Manuel's story unfold with his evacuation from Honduras, and what was that while you were there, or was that after? Did this movie become something bigger after you thought it was wrapped, or? Yeah,
it changed a few times during production. When we first found them, they were kind of in hiding after sort of followed. They were always kind of just very secretive, hard to get in touch with. You had to know. Chris mentioned it took us a month to find them, asking everyone we knew. But so we filmed them for 6 months in our first, or maybe 5 months on our first stint. And during that time, we thought that Orlin, the accordionist, was the most interesting subject, and he let us into his world a little bit more than Marcos and Manuel, the bassist and the lead singer. But then after that first 5 months, when we were back in the States, reviewing our footage and thinking about what we were going to do next, that's when Manuel received the death threat, and then he moved to the U.S., and we realized that the story just became, as you mentioned, a little bit bigger and changed, and now we can include this theme of immigration and film him in the States if we were able to find him in the States. So then,
and you were kept up to date on what was going on with the band, like probably not. You weren't like, I don't know, Snapchatting with them or something, but maybe you had other friends in Honduras who were kind of like keeping you in the know.
For sure. I mean, we're actually friends with them on Facebook and WhatsApp.
Okay.
They still message us.
All right. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wow. That's. And well, I guess obviously you then got in touch with him down in North Carolina once he was there, and shot that stuff down there.
Yeah, he actually went to Chicago first, which we don't show in the movie, but because it's kind of like too much for what we were trying to do, but you get the point. So there's a really large Honduran community in Chicago, or Waukegan actually, so like north of Chicago, I guess, and then in Raleigh too. So he kind of just bounces around from Honduran community to Honduran community, playing music, kind of working jobs, and yeah, his sister, his older sister, is kind of a gatekeeper of the family. She is you can't talk to Manuel without talking to her. So it was really actually kind of getting through to her first and convincing her that the movie would not endanger Manuel. I mean, he was already playing for drug cartels. I don't think the documentary is going to really put him in any more harm than he was, But it was basically. Getting in touch with her and just convincing her, and that this will could help Manuel. And we've since actually we're in contact with some lawyer groups right now trying to get him help. But yeah, we filmed in North Carolina a little bit, in Chicago a little bit, and Ted and I did that solo just because it was easier, I guess, than bringing a big crew along. So
great. Yeah, and I know. You mentioned to me earlier in our earlier conversations that it is a little, you do go through his sister, and it's a little bit hard to contact or just to keep in touch with them, and especially nowadays he's a little extra paranoid with the increased ICE raids and things like this, and we even tried to get him to come here and play, but he doesn't really, it's hard for him to travel around, even at least in a public kind of way. But as far as this film finished maybe almost a year ago, or was it like a little under a year ago or something?
Yeah, like 6, 7 months ago maybe.
So he's, as far as you know, it's kind of, his situation is kind of the same as we see his life portrayed in the movie, and just to let people up to date with our protagonist.
Yeah, he's still, Manuel is still, he's actually, so the band that you saw in the very last scene in the indoor soccer stadium, that's like a new group that he's made in the States, and they're actually picking up some momentum. If you look at them, we follow them on Facebook, and they're always playing at like a better, mostly in the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina area, but they also do travel around a little bit in the East Coast, and they're doing well. They're picking up some steam. Orlin, the accordionist, is still performing in Olancho. He's looking forward to us showing the movie in Honduras. He really likes the fame that the band and the movie brings to him, so he's excited for the premiere, the Honduran premiere.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'd love to just talk a little bit more about Honduran music and culture, but maybe we can get to that. I'd love to get some questions from the audience, give them a chance first too. Go ahead.
How were the Narcos when you approached them to film inside their like private club?
Mm-hmm.
Was there pushback, or did they accommodate you?
There was pushback. That show we filmed, we went with Orlin alone. He was not like with the band, as you saw. And when we arrived, it was kind of like it was one of the Narcos. It was his birthday, and so he invited like the whole town to come to this barbecue at his place. And they, gave out food, and they ate. But then as the night went on, it was kind of evident, like, all right, all the townspeople were leaving, and the big boys were going to play at that point. And so we got there, and we had the cameras, and they were like, put the cameras away, not going to fly, because they had some military guys in uniform there, and just, obviously what they're doing. So we're like, all right, fine. So we put the cameras away. And then as the night went on, they started to, drink and get pretty crazy. And by maybe like 1 or 2 in the morning, it was just like, hey, where are those cameras at? We're like, oh, really? Yeah, go ahead. Like, okay, cool. So we were able to film then. And, we were making a movie about their favorite band, or their, they loved it. They thought it was really cool. And, but they were at first pretty, kind of skeptical, like, who are these 2 gringos here with cameras at our party? But Orlin also stuck up for us a lot. He was like, always, you probably noticed, but whenever he talks, he kind of just like yells. He's like a force, he protected us a couple times, and they're with me, don't bother them. And so that helped us a lot too, I'd say, having Orlin be on our side. So.
Did you make friends with any of the cartel members?
I wouldn't say friends, we did what they said, because that's just what you have to do.
Facebook friends?
No, not Facebook friends. Like at one point we were there, and they were like, hey, you guys dance with those women. We're like, oh God, okay. But, what do you do? Like, I'm okay, I'm good. No, so it was,
Take another shot.
Yeah.
Tequila.
Friends, no, but like,
Yeah, right. We're sociable with them, right?
And we knew a lot of the same people. Like we taught our students that we taught. Their parents were kind of involved in some of the drug trafficking too, which is wild. But Olancho's a pretty small place. It's like a big town, so we had friends in common. Like, oh, I taught your niece or something like that, and so we have those connections that help too.
Sure. Anybody else have a question? Go ahead.
So is Orlin able to do any performing? I mean, he's such a good accordion player. So they have some band that's still going down in Honduras?
Yeah, we see pictures of him performing all the time. His situation is a little bit more tenuous, and we worry about him more. Manuel, I think, is kind of safe, and especially Manuel being in the States, his sister really looks out for him and makes sure that, like, she wanted to see screeners of the movie before we finished it officially and gave input. She makes sure that he doesn't drive. She's worried that if he gets pulled over for taillight out or something, he's going to be deported. So Manuel is in Orland. On the other hand, you see he's still doing a lot of the stuff that you see in the film. So.
Well, we are going to have to wrap up here in a minute, but I want to again thank you guys for being here. And I don't know, are you going to hang out at the museum for a little bit in case anybody wants to ask any more questions and hang out?
For sure.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.